Part 1. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1. Ring ring ring. The crisp welcome bell rang on the door of the coffee shop. Crunch. Overweight people walked on the floor, making it make an overwhelming sound. A dry, harsh voice that contained anger and had to be endured sounded. Is this the Xuanhuan house that specializes in resolving incidents involving resentful spirits? The person who made the sound was a fat man with a huge waist and a height of less than 7 meters. He was wearing an elegant tuxedo, made of silk, with several dark patterns on it. It looked like a handmade high-end product. He wore a gentleman's hat on his head, a cigarette butt bitten in the corner of his mouth, his face was gloomy, and his belly was bulging like a pig's belly. He stared at a young man behind the bar in the cafe. A refreshing voice sounded, "Welcome, this is the house of everything." A young man in a grey trench coat stood behind the bar, smiling and full of kindness. The bar of Master House, brandy. Crunch, crunch. The fat man walked to the bar in a few steps and sat down on the bar seat. "I'm looking for someone to solve the problem." Brandy behind the bar smiled slightly. "Please tell me the details of the matter, I need to make a judgment. There have been ghosts appearing in my residence these days, and a servant saw a strange white shadow. It attacked my servant and someone was injured. Now I need to find someone to deal with this thing immediately." The incident of resentful spirits hurting people, Mr. Brandy quickly recorded something on a piece of white paper. "What's the address?" The fat man took a long drag on his pipe and said, "Number 13, Land Road, West City." Brandy recorded the information, raised her head and said to the big fat man, "Sir, please give me your name. And you need to pay 10 gold coins in advance. We will arrange people to solve it as soon as possible." The big fat man seemed to know the rules here. He took out the money bag from his arms and put it on the table. Bang. "My name is Hung Grank, please remember to come as soon as possible." After saying that, the big fat man turned around and walked out quickly. He felt a little uncomfortable staying here. Brandy picked up the money bag, counted it and put it away. Walked out from the bar and took a few steps to a corner in the cafe lobby. There was a person sleeping on the sofa here. Place this new mission information on the table. Store manager, I'm on a mission. This month's income depends on this. Yawn. We have a mission, he said sleepily. The man sat up from the sofa, stretched and let out a big yawn. Brandy looked at the man helplessly, her brows twitching. Store manager Lin Yi, this task is urgent. This month's rent depends on it. Lin Yi stood up. He was a man about 75 meters tall with an ordinary appearance. The eyes, mouth, and nose are all very ordinary, and no one would even take a glance at her in a crowd. The only special thing is that the skin on his hands and face is light yellow, as smooth as jade. The upper body is a white shirt, a black leather jacket, the lower body is a set of leather pants, and the boots are also high-top leather. The hands were wearing exquisite black steel gloves, so fine that the joints of each finger could rotate, and they looked valuable. "Okay, I'll finish it quickly. Just take a good look at the store." With that said, Lin Yi picked up the notepad on the desktop, which contained the information about this mission. Ring ring ring. With the welcoming bell ringing, Lin Yi walked out of the Xuanhuan view. The blood-red brilliance fell on the ground, like red lotus fire, and the whole world was shrouded in blood red. Looking at the two bloody suns hanging in the sky, Lin Yi's eyes were in a daze and he took a deep breath. It's not the earth after all. Let's get to work. He lowered his head to look at the case information on the notepad in his hand and frowned. Let's go and investigate first. Time always flies. At night, the street lights on the street shed pale light, and a figure stood outside the gate of number 13 West Long Street in Honglian City. Lin Yi stared at this large and gorgeous mansion with cold eyes. After coming to this world for more than 10 years, he has long understood that this seemingly peaceful world is full of unknown dangers. After an afternoon of investigation, I have some understanding of this resentful spirit incident. Taking a deep breath, a faint wave of energy spread throughout the body. Light cyan light shimmered under his skin, merging with the energy in his body. The chi condensed in the powerful diamond sutra flows in the body, becoming more and more agile as it flows. The mysterious wave of light is his biggest reliance on quickly establishing a foothold in this world, which he calls the power of spiritual waves. It has miraculous effects on dealing with supernatural objects, such as ghosts. Integrating the martial arts energy in his body, he possesses power that ordinary warriors do not have, which is also the basis for him to open the Wanshi house. Feeling the power in his body, Lin Yi was prepared and carefully observed the mansion in front of him. It is a typical Western-style double-story mansion. Behind the gate of the iron fence is a garden and road covering an area of several hundred square meters, extending all the way to the gate of the mansion. There is a white statue every 10 meters on both sides of the road, showing the heritage of this mansion. Lin Yi pursed his lips and exclaimed, "You are really rich." The west of the city is indeed a rich area. Looking through the door, he carefully observed the gorgeous roads, gardens, and plant shadows. Examine whether there is any danger hidden inside. Looking down at his watch, it was 30 minutes past midnight. Click, click, click. Pushing open the iron gate of the garden, Lin Yi walked into the garden road. It was a dead silent night, without any sound, only the hazy moonlight and starlight. As soon as he stepped into the garden, it was as if he had come to another world, with an inexplicable chill shrouding the place. Uncontrollably, Lin Yi felt a sense of discomfort all over his body. Cold, discomfort, this is the influence of the appearance of the vengeful spirit. His eyes narrowed, and he walked towards the mansion. The road under his feet was hard, and the surrounding gardens were dead silent. A few minutes later, after passing through the garden and the road, he came to the door of the mansion. Looking at the two-story mansion covering thousands of square meters, he put his hands on the door. Creaky. Pushing open the door, it was pitch black inside. He had already investigated what had happened in the mansion in the past few days. Since 3 days ago, there have been constant weird and terrifying screams and roars in the mansion. There were even rumors that someone had died inside, and everyone who had lived here had evacuated. This mansion belongs to Honglian K, a wealthy businessman in Honglian City. He himself was once a noble bloodline in the past of the Honglian realm. It is said that this man has a deep relationship with a certain senior official of the Honglian Empire, and his wealth and status are amazing. Lin Yi swept his eyes around, and with the help of the hazy moonlight, he grasped the situation in the hall of the mansion. The open hall is about 100 square meters. 2 spiral staircases are located on the left and right sides of the hall, winding to the second floor. The second floor is a circular corridor, and there is a door every few meters on the corridor. There is a corridor on the left and right at the end of the first floor hall, located under the stairs, leading to each room on the first floor. Lin Yi's eyes swept across the right side of the mansion gate, where there is a light switch. Click. Press the switch, the light comes on, and the hall of the mansion is bright. The light dispels the darkness and brings vision. But the coldness surrounding it has not diminished at all, as if the light has no effect on this inexplicable coldness. If it was before coming to this world, Lin Yi would definitely not believe in the existence of resentful spirits. But after coming to this world, he saw the martial arts and mastered his own golden finger. He realized that he had come to a completely different world. A world with extraordinary power. Da-da. Lin Yi's footsteps sounded, and he slowly walked into the hall of the mansion and came to the end of the hall. He looked around and chose the corridor on the left side of the first floor. There was a window on one side of the corridor, and you could see the garden outside. The street lights in the garden were not powered on, and it was pitch black, which was terrifying. On one side was the door of the room, one every 5 meters. Ka. Lin Yi opened the door one by one, and his eyes were alert and paid attention to the inside. But in about 10 minutes, the left corridor was searched and there was nothing unusual. Returning the original route, he came to the corridor on the right. Da. The footsteps kept ringing in this dead mansion, which was very harsh. It seemed that as time got closer and closer to the middle of the night, the cold air became colder. He had goosebumps on his skin. Pushing open the third door of the corridor on the right, Lin Yi frowned. The traces of blood dyed the house black and red. Someone died here? The amount of blood loss is not low. He carefully scanned the room. The ceiling, the walls, and the ground were all black and red dried blood. The bed, the table, and the chairs were all blood-stained, and a rotten bloody smell came to the face. The room full of death was chilling. Walking into the room, Lin Yi looked around and fell on the notebook on the desk. A few steps over, the notebook was open, with blood-stained words written on it. It seemed that when the attack occurred, the people in this room were writing something. Forgive me, Zhang Xiao, I am not an accomplice. Forgive me, it was Hong Lianke who asked me to kill you and your child. He is a beast, you are not the first maid she insulted. I have no choice, you must not come to me. I am innocent, revenge when there is revenge, complain when there is resentment. The diary stopped abruptly when it was written here. Lin Yi frowned and turned a few pages of the diary. The front is full of this person's confession, cursing Hong Liang and telling his innocence. But the things recorded in it are disgusting and terrifying. With a sneer on his lips, Lin Yi deduced what happened here. The owner here, Hong Liang, is a typical perverted sex maniac. He raped his maids through power and wealth, and there were quite a few of them. One of the maids was pregnant, but it was not discovered for various reasons. When the child was born, it was discovered by Hong Liang. He ordered the servant in this room, his butler, to kill the maid and her child with his own hands. Apparently, the maid became a vengeful spirit and came back for revenge. After figuring out the general situation here, Lin Yi shook his head and turned back to the hall. He casually took a wooden chair from the room, sat on it, crossed his legs, and looked around vigilantly. Time passed by minute, and it was already late at night in a blink of an eye. A gust of cold wind, accompanied by a white shadow, flashed in the corridor on the second floor, and Lin Yi narrowed his eyes. Are you here? Coo. The 12 o'clock bell in the mansion rang, and a carved wooden bird popped out of the small house on the large classical mechanical clock, making a cooing sound, making the whole mansion even more weird. It was midnight, and it was also the time when most vengeful spirits often appeared. The cooing sound seemed to indicate something, and a howl full of pain, anger, and despair rang out from the mansion. Lin Yi felt dizzy, and a white shadow flashed out from the corridor on the second floor and rushed towards him. Not good. He flipped sideways, left the wooden chair, and rolled on the ground. Lin Yi turned over and punched to the side. This punch was like a cannonball with great force, and all the muscles in his body were trembling. The pure white energy gathered in his right fist, and the light blue spiritual wave covered the skin of his fist, hitting the white shadow that rushed towards him. Bang! There was a muffled sound of hitting the leather, and Lin Yi's body shook. The huge force and coldness came from the arm that was hit, making him retreat 3 steps. He retreated 3 meters with a slight daze, and saw clearly what was attacking him. The face was withered and yellow, like a dried corpse, with black hair hanging down to the waist, wearing a blood-stained black and white classical maid outfit. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 2. The white shadow revealed its true appearance, and a cold breath filled the surroundings. With the appearance of the white shadow, the temperature of the hall became even lower. A thin layer of frost on the ground spread around, as if it had life. It had a shriveled face, and its eyes were two dark holes, like an abyss. There was a hollow darkness in its shriveled lips, no teeth, no tongue, only a hole. Its skin was dry, as if it was a dried corpse that had been dead for 1,000 years, skinny and bony. It was wearing a white maid outfit, tattered, and a stench filled the air. Its arms were hanging down, and the 5 fingers of its palms were slender, with sharp nails as black as ink. A faint black smoke came out of its left hand, and a green spiritual wave attached to it, slowly corroding its hand. Its empty eyes stared at Lin Yi, as if it was looking at a dead person, and it slowly tilted its head, as if it was thinking. My child, have you seen my child? A hoarse, low, cold, and dead voice came out of its empty mouth intermittently. That was not the sound of the tongue, but the sound that came directly from the throat. Lin Yi's scalp was numb. He felt that this thing was very strange. It was definitely not the vengeful spirit he had dealt with before. What is this thing? This thought flashed through his mind. Looking at the vengeful spirit maid who was motionless and seemed to be waiting for his answer. I didn't see your child. As he answered, the maid looked at him with her empty eye sockets. The terrifying low voice exploded like a beast. My child. Give it back to me. Swoosh. It moved, at an astonishing speed, and it was in front of Lin Yi in an instant. The sharp claws pointed directly at his face. Lin Yi's scalp exploded, his body shrank, and he squatted down. With a kick of his legs, his fists blasted out, pointing directly at the chest and abdomen of the vengeful spirit. The ghost was very fast, and without any movement, its body flashed to Lin Yi's left. One claw continued to grab his head. Lin Yi had to give up the attack, and stepped back to avoid the claws pointing directly at his head. At the same time, he kicked out with one leg and blasted the ghost's claws. Bang! With a muffled sound, the ghost's claws were hit. The light of the spiritual wave collided with her claws, and the ghost's claws immediately emitted black smoke. The maid ghost was stimulated and opened her huge empty mouth. A sharp and shrill howl sounded, and a strange wave rushed towards Lin Yi. His head was dizzy, accompanied by a sharp pain, which almost made Lin Yi lose control of himself. At the same time, he felt a strong wind coming towards his chest. Without any hesitation, at the critical moment of life and death, his hands lit up with rich spiritual waves. The martial arts energy in his body was running to the extreme, raising his strength to the highest peak. Grab in the direction of the strong wind. 2 dragons going out to sea. Bang! With a muffled sound, Lin Yi's hands sank, and his 2 arms were grabbed by him. But this force was too great, and under inertia, the claws of the ghost's arms pierced his chest. But at this time, the muscles in his chest were swollen to the extreme. The air circulated in his chest, tightly clamping the claws that penetrated half an inch. A hideous smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and Lin Yi's eyes were cold. Die. Grabbing the ghost's arms, countless black smoke emerged in the erosion of the spirit wave. The legs suddenly retracted, and he flew towards the maid ghost whose arms were controlled by him. This leg gathered all the strength and energy in his body, and the spirit waves gathered on his feet without any reservation. Boom! With a muffled sound, the maid ghost's chest was pierced on the spot, and her arms were directly broken. The shrill howling sounded wildly, and the mansion was shrouded by terrifying sound waves. Lin Yi, who was the first to be hit, had a huge shock in his head, and his body lost control in mid-air and fell directly to the ground. His head seemed to be about to explode, and the blood vessels in his forehead were beating wildly. His nose had begun to bleed, some blood vessels in his body had ruptured, and his body was twitching involuntarily. At the critical moment of life and death, Lin Yi's eyes swept across the front. The maid ghost who had lost both arms, had a big hole in her chest, and opened her mouth to howl wildly stayed in place without moving. The chi in his body was running wildly, and the spiritual waves were trembling in his body at an astonishing speed. Resisting the howling and enduring the severe pain in his head, he struggled to get up from the ground. He struggled step by step towards the maid ghost in front of him, who had no movement except howling. The closer he got to the ghost, the greater the impact Lin Yi received. When he came to a position 1 meter in front of the maid ghost, he raised his right arm to gather strength. A ferocious look appeared on his face. "Shut up." Bang. He punched like a cannon, and smashed the maid ghost's mouth into pieces with one punch. The maid ghost was knocked down by a huge force, and her mouth was shattered, but she was not dead. The howling stopped abruptly. She turned her head and stared at Lin Yi. Her empty mouth occupied half of her face. The wailing seemed to be about to sound again. But Lin Yi was faster than her, and stepped on her, so that the howling stopped directly in her throat. Puff. The head was completely shattered under his feet, and the maid ghost died completely. As the ghost's head was crushed, the green spirit wave covered the maid ghost's whole body along Lin Yi's feet. It was visible to the naked eye that the maid ghost's body was crumbling. Wisps of mysterious black mist floated up and drifted towards Lin Yi's body. At this time, Lin Yi was panting heavily, with 10 blood marks on his chest, which were the marks of being pierced by the claws of the vengeful spirit. The wound was pitch black, and the green spiritual wave dissipated the black evil breath at the wound. Wisps of black smoke came out of the wound and were expelled from the body. He took a deep breath to relieve the severe pain in his head, and then he noticed that wisps of black mist floated into his body. His face changed, and he immediately encouraged the few spiritual waves in his body to travel all over his body, and then he was slightly stunned. What is this? At this time, his spiritual waves in his body were just like living things, madly devouring these strange black mists, turning them into wisps of spiritual waves. With a thought in his mind, Lin Yi didn't care about anything else and sat cross-legged on the ground. He put his hands together in front of his chest, and his fingers began to form various hand seals. Every 10 seconds, there was a change, and in a blink of an eye, there were 81 hand seals. And as the hand seals changed, his spiritual waves began to show drastic frequency changes. The black mist in the body was melted at an even more amazing speed. When all the black fog was melted, Lin Yi found that his spiritual wave had increased nearly times. And in his brain consciousness, a magical scene was reflected. 81 petals appeared in his consciousness. Each petal was composed of spiritual waves, and a handprint was engraved on it. At this time, all 81 petals lit up with a green glow. Lin Yi was surprised. All of them lit up. I have practiced the Yiling Jing for more than 10 years, and I have only lit up more than 70 petals. This mysterious resentful spirit actually lit up all the remaining petals. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 3. As all the lotuses reflected in the mind lit up, a strange lotus seed grew out of the lotus. The lotus seed was very delicate. It was a three-dimensional shining mark extending from the lotus formed by 81 hand seals. At this time, the 81 petals were rapidly withering, and strands of green light flowed into the lotus seed. The lotus seed quickly solidified until finally, a shining lotus seed that seemed to be real appeared in Lin Yi's mind. An inexplicable wave extended to Lin Yi's whole body. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow dot. He felt his head was clear, as if heaven and man were united, and the thoughts in his mind became very clear. The scripture of the Great Power Diamond Sutra flashed through his mind, and he was surprised to find that he understood all the mysteries of this scripture. The chi flowed in his body, and it began to undergo different changes in every meridian and acupointment. It may beat several times, or dozens of times, or flow back and forth in the acupuncture points, or pause before flowing into the next acupuncture point. This was something he had never thought of before. Now that he understood the method of cultivation, he suddenly understood the changes in the qi at these acupuncture points. In martial arts cultivation, the qi does not just flow directly through the acupuncture points, but there are also various subtle changes. At this time, the qi of the whole body grows rapidly in a short period of time, converging into a huge river, flowing from all parts of the body into the danshan. Then from the danshan along the central meridian, it rushes straight to the top of the head. Boom! As if the world was created, Lin Yi felt that his spirit seemed to connect the heaven and the earth, and his thoughts suddenly had a carrier. The thoughts left the body and saw the outside world, where there were dots of light. His thoughts touched these light spots, and they flowed into his body from the top of the head along his thoughts. The qi merged with these light spots and quickly underwent amazing changes. A trace of qi emitting a light golden glow appeared in his body. It was so pure that it wandered through the meridians of the body and finally disappeared in front of his chest. Lin Yi felt that as the golden light disappeared, the wound on his chest that was pierced by the maid's ghost quickly stopped bleeding and began to scab. Can this golden air also increase healing ability? So powerful! With surprise, his mind came into contact with more light spots in the void. They merged into his body little by little along the thoughts, and after merging with the air, they turned into strands of golden silk threads. The golden silk threads merged into the body and circulated along the meridians. The speed of the Great Power Diamond Sutra quickly reached an astonishing speed, and in a blink of an eye, I didn't know how long it had passed. Lin Yi's whole body was shocked, and all the air in his body turned golden. His whole body was warm, as if he was exposed to the sun's rays. At this time, from the outside world, his skin turned light gold. A thin layer of golden light covered his whole body, making him look like a golden Buddha statue in a temple. Huh! Exhaling deeply, Lin Yi woke up from his meditation. Feeling the changes in his body, he jumped up. The crackling sound of bone fascia friction sounded. He looked down at his chest, the wound there had completely scabbed, and it would be completely healed in a few days. Slightly circulating the golden qi, he saw golden light all over his body, and his skin was covered with a layer of gold foil. This scene made him look shocked. Is this the highest realm of martial arts rumored on the internet? The essence is released, an inch of mountains and rivers. I actually reached this realm, this is fun. On the famous martial arts rankings in Honglian City, less than 100 people can enter this realm. Maybe we can promote it, and the Wanchaiwu will be famous. When all kinds of tasks come one after another, I will make a fortune. As if he thought of something good, his eyes turned into the symbol of gold coins, and Lin Yi looked dreamy. This guy may have been poor in his previous life, and he is born to be a money grubber. Suddenly, his eyes flashed, and he saw a shiny thing, which was inside the remains of the maid's ghost. Lin Yi was a little surprised, and hurried over. Is it something good? He bent down to push the remains aside and dug out the things inside. A silver ring covered with strange patterns. The ring looks like an antique. After thinking about it, Lin Yi put the ring on his right ring finger, with a cold touch and an inexplicable chill. The mysterious lotus seed in his body fluctuated, and a spiritual wave swept through, and the chill disappeared instantly. The subtle changes made Lin Yi's eyes light up. There is a problem, could it be a treasure? The Red Lotus realm has undergone many changes in recent years. There are legends that the surge of vitality has caused all kinds of strange things to appear continuously, and many short videos on the internet have captured various magical scenes. Now if a mythical treasure appears, Lin Yi will not be surprised. After thinking about it, he encouraged the golden energy in his body to flow towards the ring on his right hand. Something surprising happened to him. The silver ring swallowed the golden energy like a black hole. He frowned and looked at the quiet environment around him. There should be no danger. See how much you can swallow. I am tired, accumulated, deep, and thick. With an inexplicable smile on his face, Lin Yi's self-entertaining nature was revealed. After about a few minutes, the ring seemed to have devoured to its limit, and Lin Yi lost about one-third of his energy. At this time, a ray of inexplicable information appeared in his mind. It's really a treasure, called the Ring of Wailing. I don't know if it's telepathy or something, Lin Yi knows the name of this ring. At the same time, he also felt that there was a connection between himself and the ring. It seemed that as long as he gave a command, it would burst out its own power. After thinking about it, Lin Yi chose to try it. As soon as his mind moved, the ring on his hand emitted a ray of invisible waves. Then a terrifying howl came out of thin air and swept around. Bang! The remains of the maid's ghost closest to him were blown up on the spot and turned into shatters. An invisible sound wave impact covered a radius of 3 meters. However, this impact came quickly and went quickly, and stopped after 3 seconds. Lin Yi looked around him, everything was blown away. Even a layer of fine cracks appeared on the ground, which shows that the power of this wailing sound is huge. Awesome, really awesome, definitely a legendary magic weapon. I've made a fortune. The money grubber reappeared, and all he could see were numbers of money. Just as he was daydreaming, a figure walked in silently from the gate. The strange breath instantly woke Lin Yi up. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the mysterious man who suddenly appeared in the mansion. The man was wearing a cloak, like a ghost in a ghost story. In the darkness, Lin Yi couldn't see the other person's face. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 4. The man stopped 3 meters in front of Lin Yi, and a cold voice sounded. Give me the items you obtained from this wraith. The female voice was cold and had a sense of superiority. She was someone who often gave orders. When Lin Yi heard this, a faint smile appeared on his face. Oh, it turns out I'm here for the treasure. But why should I give it to you? This is what I have earned through hard work. After hearing Lin Yi's words, the mysterious woman raised her right hand. A jet black flame emerged out of thin air and appeared in her hand. Lin Yi's expression changed as a huge danger rushed towards him. He immediately activated his spiritual waves and began to be on guard, but then he felt that his vision had changed. The world was no longer dark in an instant, but was covered in countless lights. The figure opposite was like a jet black flame, burning everything close to it. Lin Yi's eyes noticed the opponent's palm. There were many pipes inside, and dark flames were flowing inside. The next moment, he seemed to understand something in his mind, that was the way the flames operated. Puff! The mysterious woman opposite waved her hand, and black flames turned into crescent moons and struck him down. Crossing a distance of 3 meters out of thin air is like a superpower. Lin Yi's hair stood on end. Without any hesitation, he rolled over, golden light appeared all over his body, and his spirit wave merged into it. Boom! There was a roar, and the ground of the mansion was hit by the flaming crescent. The bursting flames blasted a 1-meter-long pit into the ground. Lin Yi just happened to avoid the black flaming crescent moon, and his clothes were ignited by a trace of black flame. He tore off his leather jacket and threw it on the ground next to him. In just a few seconds, the jacket was burned to ashes. Seeing this power, Lin Yi took a breath. Oh my God, this is as powerful as a bomb. Is this still a human being? Lin Yi was filled with shock. Who are you? I just bought my jacket, which is worth 300 yuan. Lin Yi couldn't help but curse. At the same time, he didn't forget to feel sorry for his leather jacket. His face was full of sadness. The mysterious woman opposite stared at him under her cloak with cold eyes. 2 hands stretched out of the cloak, raised slightly, and 2 black flames burned on the hands. Pure white and slender fingers, without a trace of excess fat, smooth and delicate, as beautiful as white jade. Seeing this finger, Lin Yi couldn't help but admired, what a beautiful hand. But it was beautiful, and the owner of the hand didn't hold it back at all because of his admiration. He blasted out his hands, and two black crescent flames crossed towards him. It blocked his left and right sides, and the timing and speed were extremely precise. The flame crescent was very fast and arrived in the blink of an eye. This time Lin Yi had no time to avoid it. When danger came, he also put away his playful smile. His face darkened, he exhaled loudly, and lowered his legs 8 steps. Putting his fists into both sides of his waist, green gold light bloomed all over his body, and spiritual waves merged. 2 fists shake the mountain. The 2 flaming crescent moons collided with Lin Yi's green gold-colored fists. Boom! Lin Yi flew up amid the huge roar. Amidst countless explosions of black fire, he slammed into the window of the mansion behind him. Crackling! With the sound of breaking glass, he fell out. A black fire rose under the feet of the mysterious woman in the mansion, and she was in front of the broken window in a flash. But the moment she came to the window, a black shadow hit her. Instinct waved his hand, and a blade of black fire split open the black shadow. A piece of white powder hit her face, making her eyes hurt. At the same time, a terrifying impact exploded in front of her, and she instinctively used her hands to block it in front of her. A sharp pain rose from her mind, her arms ached sharply, and her body kept retreating under the huge impact. At the critical moment, the mysterious woman shouted angrily, "Despicable!" Boom! As if the god of fire came to the world, a black flame spurted out from her body in an instant, turning into a flaming dress and wrapping her up. The black robe on her body was burned to ashes, revealing the true face of the mysterious woman. She has a cold face, a high-class world-weary face, full of disgust for the world, but her beautiful face is like Chang'e's. Even if there was a layer of white dust on her face, it could not hide her beauty. With a tall figure, the long skirt of flames touches the floor, and the long hair falls and dances in the flames. She looks like a flaming queen. His eyes were slightly closed, and 2 flaming whips appeared in his hands, waving in all directions, and a 3-meter radius was guarded. The powder on his face was quickly burned into nothingness by the black fire, and countless flames were dripping from his eyes. The strange and beautiful scene made Lin Yi outside the window stunned for a moment. But in the next moment, he knew that this woman was completely beyond his control. No matter how beautiful she is still the king of hell. Damn it, why did you provoke such a monster? He yelled, "Beauty, I won't play with you anymore. Let's see what I do." After he finished speaking, he picked up the stones on the ground outside the window and threw them at the woman in flames. Swish swish. The mighty Diamond Sutra gave him great power. The sound of stones breaking through the air was heard. The beautiful woman bit her silver teeth secretly and waved the flaming whip angrily to smash the flying stones. Lin Yi turned around and ran away without any intention of stopping. At this time, he was weak all over. After the fight just now, his strength was almost exhausted. Fortunately, this city was a familiar place for him. He rushed out of the villa area and disappeared in the alley in a few steps. At this time, in the mansion, the flames in the beautiful woman's eyes no longer dripped. It was all lime that was burned into nothingness. Finally, she opened her beautiful eyes, and her pupils were filled with black flames, as if hell was burning. Damn, despicable, it's lime powder. The woman's eyes swept across the first floor of the mansion, which was empty and seemed to have been hit by a hurricane. I have never seen such a despicable warrior. I will never let you go. Turning around, the flames under his feet flashed, and disappeared outside the mansion gate like a black smoke. Dang dang. The back door of the Wanchaiwa gate was pushed open, and Lin Yi staggered in. He sat on the ground with a blood stain on his chest. Originally, the wound on his chest had just scabbed, but after a fight with the mysterious woman, he was hit hard and it split again. What bad luck. A figure walked out of the store, looked at Lin Yi who was sitting on the ground, and his face changed. "Manager, what's wrong with you?" Lin Yi rolled his eyes at him. "It's getting harder and harder to get by with a psychopath these days. One is more powerful than the other, help me in." Brandy hurried over, helped Lin Yi up, and went into a bedroom in the store. This is a very strange bedroom, with grid shelves on both walls, and various things are placed inside. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 5. A desk was placed next to the third wall, on which were neatly arranged various files and stationery. A wooden bed was placed against the last wall, and Lin Yi sat on the bed with the help of Brandy. Lin Yi waved his hand. "You go and rest, I'll do the rest myself." A trace of worry flashed across Brandy's face, but he knew Lin Yi's temper and kept his word. "Manager, I'm leaving then." "Go," he waved his hand and sent Brandy away. He took a deep breath, and felt a sharp pain in his chest. "It's really powerful, this woman is really cruel. I don't know where it came from, the flame is really terrifying. I can't stop it even if I reach the level of chi release." Mumbling for a while, Lin Yi looked at the grids on the two walls of his body. He walked to one of the walls, opened a grid, and took out a box of snow-white medicine boxes. "Blood jade paste, this is a good thing, worth 3 gold coins, produced by Biotang in the east of Honglian City." Biotang, that is a well-known old pharmacy in the Red Lotus world. Even in this era of the rise of new medicine, there are many difficult and complicated diseases that can only be treated by it. Blood jade paste is a powerful medicine for treating trauma. The medicine will cure the disease, and at most 3 days, as long as the trauma that does not hurt the bones, it can be 70% to 80% healed. Of course, if it is a large-scale injury, it will not be healed in 3 days, but it is absolutely effective for ordinary trauma. After applying the ointment on the wound and bandaging it, Lin Yi fell into the quilt and didn't want to get up. In a blink of an eye, it was the next day. Ringing ringing. The welcome bell of the Wanchaiwa rang. Amid the wailing sound of the creaking floor, Hong Lian-ke, who came here to issue tasks yesterday, walked in with a gloomy face. "How do you do things? My mansion looks like it has been demolished." Lin Yi sat on his own sofa, drinking coffee and eating a bacon sandwich, looking very comfortable. Looking at Hong Lian-ke who came to the door early in the morning, he yawned. "My employer, the ghost in your house is not just an ordinary ghost. That little bit of damage is nothing to you, you can just find someone to fix it. The most important thing is that your trouble is solved, that's what you need, isn't it? The ghost of the maid is very resentful, I'm afraid her origin is not very good. Do you want me to find a few reporters to interview her 24 hours a day and make a big fuss?" Hong Lian-ke's fat pig-like face paused, and looked at Lin Yi deeply. "Are you the boss here?" "What else?" He rolled his eyes at Hong Lian-ke, the fat pig. Lin Yi has already investigated his origin. Honglian City natives, his ancestors were nobles in the past court, although now it has entered a new era, but his status is still noble. Relying on the status of his ancestors, he is engaged in business activities, and he is also a rich man. But now is a society ruled by law, not the past era when people with a little power could do whatever they want. At least it is not so corrupt in the new era for 50 years. The maid's ghost last night was obviously related to Hong Liang. Lin Yi saw it clearly, and one sentence made Hong Liang feel a little alert. "Okay, I won't pursue this matter, but if there are any bad rumors, don't blame me for being rude." Lin Yi rolled his eyes at Hong Liang. "Taking money from people to help them get rid of disasters, I don't talk about reason here, I only talk about money. We keep the privacy of our guests confidential and will not ask about it. This is professional ethics." "Humph," Hong Liang glanced at Lin Yi, as if to remember his appearance, and then turned and left the Wanchaiwu. Brandy was behind the bar, watching Hong Liang leave. "Manager, Will there be any trouble? This Honglian K has a deep foundation in Honglian City. Lin Yi waved his hand. It's okay, these people are smart and won't ask for trouble. Now is a special era, with all kinds of mysterious people. These people with some foundation are cautious, afraid of offending someone they can't afford to offend. Although my Wanchaiwu is not a dangerous place, not everyone can offend it. Brandy stopped talking after hearing this and started doing his own work, wiping cups and tables behind the bar, preparing for a new day. As for Lin Yi, he is studying his current state. He has been in this world for more than 10 years, and he came here by soul travel. The first thing he saw when he opened his eyes was an old man, and then he has been living with this old man. The old man is a martial artist, and he has a house in Honglian City. The old man didn't tell Lin Yi his name, but just asked Lin Yi to call him Grandpa. The Great Power Diamond Sutra that Lin Yi practiced came from him. However, when Lin Yi came to this world, he was not without anything. He came with a mysterious scripture. The scripture was called Yi Ling Jing and existed in his mind. As long as he closed his eyes and concentrated, he would see its existence. A green scripture that flashed with an illusory and hazy light and exuded a mysterious charm. What Lin Yi got from this Yi Ling Jing was a set of hand seals. There were a total of 81 hand seals, which needed to be completed in one go, and a hand seal phantom would appear in his mind. At first, he didn't know what the phantom was for, but he thought that it was brought by himself, and it must have a strange effect. He had read too many novels and thought it should be a golden finger, so he persisted. After condensing the 81 hand seals, something magical did happen. These hand seals automatically combined to form a strange lotus, and at the same time produced a spiritual wave. The spiritual wave was named by himself, and this force existed in his body in the form of waves. The appearance of the spiritual wave completely changed his fate. According to the old man, the Great Power Diamond Sutra has a total of 3 levels, but from ancient times to the present, only very few people can practice to the 3rd level. The old man only practiced to the 1st level in his life. According to the old man, it is said that there were masters who could turn rivers and seas upside down and fly into the sky and hide in the earth in the distant times. This Great Power Diamond Sutra was passed down from them. Lin Yi naturally sneered, although he also traveled through time. But after practicing the Great Power Diamond Sutra, he felt that it was just something like martial arts. It is impossible to practice to the peak if you want to fly into the sky and hide in the earth. But all this changed after he practiced the spiritual wave. The Great Power Diamond Sutra, which had never made any progress, was actually practiced to the peak of the 1st level by him in just 1 month. This change shocked the old man. The 3 realms of the Great Power Diamond Sutra are swallowing air, penetrating the body, and rushing to the top. The 1st level of swallowing air is to simply refine essence into air. The energy dissipated in the body is transformed into controllable air and stored in the meridians. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 6. In martial arts practice, every wisp of qi needs to be practiced diligently, and I don't know how many people have been stumped. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. Lin Yi, who had almost no talent, practiced to the peak of swallowing qi within a month, and was naturally amazed by the old man. After that, Lin Yi was even more unstoppable and entered the state of penetrating the body. Stimulate the qi to flow through the meridians of the whole body, open up the meridians, and increase the upper limit of one's own qi. Originally, everything was going according to plan, and Lin Yi was expected to achieve a good career in life with this martial arts practice in the future. But everything ended 3 years ago. The world changed, various strange phenomena continued to appear, and practice seemed to become easier. Overnight, it seemed that many people who were obsessed with martial arts had cultivated qi. The media rushed to report, the internet spread quickly, everyone realized the problem, and the world began to change. The old man who had always depended on Lin Yi was very unfortunate. After the world changed 3 years ago, he died of old age. Lin Yi became a human again. After seeing the old man off, he found a job in Honglian City. Because of the changes in the world, the vengeful spirits that were once denounced as superstition began to appear in the world. An accidental encounter made Lin Yi discover that his spiritual wave had a huge ability to harm the vengeful spirits. Thanks to this, in order to get rid of the current situation of working for others, Lin Yi gritted his teeth, sold the old man's property, rented a 2-story building, opened a shop, and specialized in dealing with various vengeful spirit incidents. Thanks to the role of the spiritual wave, Lin Yi has been in Honglian City for 3 years and has a certain reputation. He has solved more than a dozen large and small vengeful spirit incidents, and his income is not cheap. With a smooth business and stable income, he also pays attention to the news information after the world changes. He knows the various realms of martial arts practice and the names of various masters in the current Honglian world. In the past 3 years, martial arts have been popular, attracting many wealthy people and capital investment. Various cultivation methods have been studied and developed, and a new industry has indeed been developed. However, people without capital cannot get involved in these industries. All Lin Yi can do is to make money and buy some drugs to increase the speed of cultivation. Life was plain and comfortable until the maid ghost incident last night. This was the first time he encountered a ghost that was completely different from before. It can't be said that there was anything different, but that thing was definitely not comparable to ordinary ghosts. He looked at the ring in his hand, which was very ordinary, but there was a layer of strange black air hidden inside. A kind of blue mysterious symbol flashed in Lin Yi's eyes. This was the divine seal that was born after his 9,981 hand seals and lotuses were bright last night, the true destiny. The divine seal is the lotus seed that grew out of the lotus. When it appeared in Lin Yi's consciousness, its information automatically emerged. The true destiny, observe everything and understand everything. In addition to this name and explanation, there is nothing else. After preliminary exploration, he found that this true destiny seemed to allow him to see and understand many mysterious things. At this time, he was watching The Secret of the Ring. But unfortunately, his true destiny only worked for a while. Seeing the mysterious black gas running in the ring made him dizzy. In his consciousness, the light emitted by the true destiny has dimmed, and the spiritual waves in it have been exhausted. He rubbed his eyebrows. This thing doesn't seem to be very useful. Closing his eyes to rest, the light of the true destiny slowly recovered, and about an hour later, it became bright again. This time, Lin Yi did not observe the ring, but came to the door of the Wanchaiwu. The door of the Wanchaiwu was glass, with floor-to-ceiling windows on both sides, and several sofas near the window. Lin Yi walked over and lay on the sofa to observe the outside. There was a green light flashing in his eyes. Strangely, the passers-by outside did not feel anything at all about the existence of this green light. In Lin Yi's sight, the world was colorful, and dots of light floated in the air. Countless rays of light, light spots, and air currents were flowing, and everyone was shining with different colors of light. Every person had a red flame glowing on his head and shoulders, but the brightness of the glow varied. This scene reminded Lin Yi of some legends from his previous life. It is said that people have 3 fires on their bodies: fortune, wealth, and longevity. The stronger the 3 fires, the less afraid of evil spirits; the weaker the 3 fires, the easier it is for evil spirits to attack. As if thinking about something, he continued to observe, and from time to time he saw some black illusory auras flash by. However, most of these auras can only exist for a short while before they are evaporated by the diffuse sunlight. The light emitted by the sun is colorful, filled with countless particles and fluctuations, and is the highest and greatest. Lin Yi can feel that every time the essence of the Great Power Diamond Sutra in his body flows, it will absorb a little bit of the light released by the sun. At this time, a figure fell into his sight. This is a man who looks to be in his 20s, and the 3 fires on his body are very strong. In short, ordinary people are like candles, and he is like a torch. But this is not what attracts Lin Yi. What really attracted Lin Yi was the qi flowing in the man's body. It was a green qi, full of vitality, long and endless. This qi circulated in the man's body, running through the meridians of his body. It was obvious that he was a person who practiced some kind of martial arts. A 3-dimensional image appeared in Lin Yi's mind, and the image he saw with his eyes was fully projected in his mind. He inexplicably understood how the man's internal qi was running, and even the slightest change could not escape his perception. He kept watching the man walking from one end of the street until he disappeared at the other end of the street. In his mind, the projected image became clearer and clearer, and the information was constantly improved. However, this state did not last long. In less than 3 minutes, the green light in his eyes dissipated. He felt dizzy and his head hurt, and his spiritual waves were exhausted again. He felt a little better after a few minutes, but the true destiny in his consciousness was completely dim. This ability consumes too much. A week later, everything in Honglian City was very peaceful. Lin Yi's injuries were basically healed, and he had a clear grasp of his current state. First of all, his true destiny is a very mysterious ability. It can observe countless things that Lin Yi has never understood, but this observation will be accompanied by huge spiritual wave consumption. Depending on the profoundness of the observed things, the consumption is also different. For example, take a person as an observation object. When an ordinary person opens his true destiny, he can maintain it for about 10 minutes and see through all the secrets of this person from the inside out. For example, the flow of basic life energy, the internal and external structure of the body, and even the energy operation of muscle movement are all clearly visible. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 7. But if the observation body is replaced by a person who practices martial arts, the duration will be shortened rapidly. The observation time will be different depending on the strength of the other party's martial arts practice. At the level of swallowing qi, he can observe for about 6 minutes. At the level of penetrating the body, he can observe for about 3 minutes, and as for the final initiation, he can only last for 1 minute at most. However, although the time is short, the gains are very huge. In this short week, Lin Yi sneaked a peek at several complete martial arts techniques. The most powerful one was the one he saw on the first day, which contained a technique with continuous vitality. After obtaining these techniques, he quickly drew them out and compiled them into 3 secret records of techniques, and named them respectively. King Gong, this set of techniques mainly cultivates a qi with continuous vitality, running through 8 different meridians throughout the body to form a circulation. Vajra body is a technique similar to Vajra Sutra of great power, which cultivates a tough qi that can make the body hard and resist the damage of swords and knives. Shenxin qi, this is a kind of exercise that can greatly increase the explosive power of leg muscle contraction. Lin Yi copied all 3 exercises in detail. If he just saw these exercises, it would not be of much significance to Lin Yi. But in the process of watching these exercises, he discovered the powerful function of Zhenming Daija. Understanding, after seeing these exercises, he just needed to think about them for a few decades, and he had a thorough understanding of them. And the effect of this understanding is also very powerful. He can directly control the qi in his body and run the qi in his body along the route of these exercises. The De Jing Gang Jing he practiced has already penetrated the meridians of his whole body. His own meridians are unobstructed and thick, and he can quickly adapt to the operation of these exercises. All these things have given him a powerful ability. As long as he has seen the exercises, he can quickly master them and turn them into his own means. To use a more showy word, give them what they want. This function is naturally a huge gain for Lin Yi. This means that he can easily learn many secret exercises. However, this ability has both advantages and disadvantages, perhaps because of the attributes of the Great Power Diamond Sutra he practiced. When he practiced Aoki Gong, he clearly felt that the qi would conflict during the operation, causing the qi and blood to churn. Although it can still be used, the effect will be discounted. And Vajrabhati basically overlaps with his own skills, and some effects are not as good, so it is also useless. Although he secretly learned 3 skills, he can only use the last one, Shenxing Qi. The effect of this skill is very simple, mainly to increase the explosive power of the legs, which can be increased by about 20%. After a week of trying, he basically figured out the function of the true destiny Daoji. In addition to the 3 skills, he also gained another thing. In Hong Liankei's mansion, he encountered a mysterious woman. During the fight, he observed the energy circulation route in the woman's palm when she cast the flame. After using his own qi to circulate according to that route, he was surprised to find that he actually condensed a gas bomb that could be released 1 meter away. The power of the gas bullet is very strong. Once it is in operation, it is the size of a thumb and consumes 1/10 of its own gas. The power is amazing. It can penetrate a 1 centimeter thick steel plate, which is comparable to the power of a small caliber pistol. Lin Yi was surprised that he could release his gas to form such a powerful attack. At the same time, he also listed the mysterious woman as extremely dangerous. At least he can be sure that the existence of that supernatural power must have a very terrifying origin. On this day, winter came, and heavy snow fell from the sky. The snow covered the streets, and after the snow accumulated for a foot, the sun in the sky had long been covered by dark clouds. This was a cold winter. Many beggars and vagrants in Honglian city had already hidden in the underground sewers. There is a city heating system there, and hiding underground at least will not be frozen to death by the cold snow. Lying on the sofa in front of the floor-to-ceiling window of the Wanchaiwu, Lin Yi basked in the warm winter sun. Holding a copy of the Tomorrow Morning News in his hand, there were all kinds of news about Honglian city. Of course, there are also various big news related to the Red Lotus realm. For example, the new president of the Red Lotus realm proposed a tax exemption policy for people with a monthly income of less than 1 gold coin, which won praise from all walks of life. However, these current political affairs have nothing to do with Lin Yi. He pays more attention to the strange news section. With the changes in the world 3 years ago, martial arts have emerged, and various ghost incidents have also emerged in an endless stream, 10 times more than in the past. A piece of news attracted Lin Yi's attention. The disappearance in Honglian city. Recently, people have disappeared in Honglian city, including homeless people, young girls, young men, middle-aged uncles, and people from all walks of life. The number has reached hundreds. The imperial authorities tried to cover it up, but with the development of the internet, covering it up is ineffective. After reporters visited and investigated, these missing people were scattered all over Honglian city, and the authorities have not given a clear explanation so far. Is this some kind of evil thing appearing in Honglian city? Author, Ai Ching, a columnist for Tomorrow Morning Post. A piece of newspaper, full of speculations, and by the way, severely stepped on the incompetence of the official department of Honglian. Obviously, the author of this article was very dissatisfied with the imperial officials and was full of anger. Shaking his head, Lin Yi smiled. This world is just like Earth, so boring. His eyes swept through several articles in succession, all of which talked about various events that had happened recently in Honglian city. Clang. Brandy put a plate of black pepper steak in front of him. Manager, if you lie like this every day, you will become a pig sooner or later. Brandy looked at Lin Yi with disgust. Hee, even if I become a pig, you have to work for me. Go away, don't be an eyesore here, go to work. Shaking his head, Brandy returned to the bar with a look of regret and began to enjoy his own lunch. Bacon sandwich, plus a large glass of pure milk, steam rising, is a good food in this cold winter. As he ate, he looked at the snowy winter outside the window, and his eyes showed a hint of complexity and melancholy. His expression was a little vague, as if he was thinking of something, and a deep sigh appeared on his face. Lin Yi slowly stretched his body and sat up from the sofa. He looked at the steak in front of him and picked up the knife and fork. This was his favorite food, something he had to eat every day. But just as he was about to eat it, his arm paused slightly. Frowning, he turned his head and looked out the window. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 8. A dirty little face looked at the steak in front of him through the window with hope. Lin Yi looked up and down along the little face. She was wearing a shabby gray single-piece dress that covered her knees and body. She didn't know where she picked up the adult clothes. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. The little girl was about 7 or 8 years old, dirty all over, her little face was frozen blue, and she was wearing worn-out boots that were obviously for adults. She looked at him timidly, and at the same time looked at the steak on his table eagerly. Lin Yi looked at her, silent for a while, looked into her eyes, and waved. The little girl was stunned. Lin Yi stood up and pulled open the door of the Wanchai. Ringing. A cold wind blew in, and the welcoming bell at the door jingled. Come in. The little girl outside blinked her big eyes, as if she couldn't believe that Lin Yi would let her in. Come in, treat you to a meal. The little girl looked at her dirty appearance, and then looked at the hot steak in the window. She touched her shriveled stomach, and finally couldn't bear it anymore, and walked into the Wanchai carefully. Lin Yi pulled out another sofa. Sit down. The little girl was very well behaved and sat on the sofa. Eat. Push the steak in front of the little girl. This steak weighed 500 g, and the side dishes were broccoli and mashed potatoes, with black pepper sauce, exuding a delicious smell. The little girl secretly glanced at Lin Yi, her eyes were red, as if no one had ever been so nice to her. Thank you, uncle, sobbing. Beiji, Beiji. The little girl picked up the knife and fork, began to cut the steak on the plate vigorously, and then swallowed it in big mouthfuls. Eating like a wolf, as if she hadn't eaten for 10 days. While eating delicious food, tears kept dripping from her red eyes. Tick, tick, tick. The crisp sound hit the table, like the sound of jade beads falling on a plate. Don't cry, eat well. Lin Yi reached out and touched the little girl's head, his eyes were very soft, as if he saw a familiar scene. Brandy sat at the bar, staring at Lin Yi blankly, without saying a word. I don't know how long it took, the little girl finished the steak. Coo. A burp, the little girl was embarrassed to look at Lin Yi, and a hint of shyness appeared on her face. Are you full? Lin Yi looked at the little girl and said. I'm full, Lingling has never eaten so full. Thank you uncle, besides my mother, uncle is the first person who treats me so well. A bright smile, a dirty little face, red eyes, tears on the cheeks, innocent, but it seems to contain the deepest suffering. Lin Yi pursed his lips and fell silent after hearing this. Well, as long as you are full. Thank you, uncle. Well, you're welcome. Manager, what are you doing? You are talking to yourself there like a fool. Brandy looked at Lin Yi with a look like a psychopath. The steak is cold. Lin Yi looked up at Brandy and swept his eyes in front of him. The cold steak was on the empty table, and the little girl just now seemed to have never existed. At this time, a news report was broadcast on the TV in the lobby. Several children's bodies were found in the slums. The news was accompanied by a large picture of several disabled girls and boys with their hands and feet cut off. They snuggled together in a dilapidated house, their bodies stiff, and they were obviously dead. But their faces were peaceful, and they hugged each other urgently. Before leaving this world, they seemed very peaceful. The news host looked at the picture with indignation. Cruel human traffickers abduct children, cripple them, and use them as begging tools. Because begging is not going well, they abandon these children in abandoned houses. After the report, the Children's Agency quickly reported the case for rescue, but when the police arrived, it was too late. A total of 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls, have been frozen to death due to the severe cold. The authorities have stated that they will bring the criminals to justice as soon as possible. Lin Yi looked at the photos in the news. Among the 5 boys and girls, the little girl just now was among them. She nestled in the arms of a companion and closed her eyes forever. Her face was calm, and the corners of her mouth were slightly upturned, as if she had a good dream in her sleep. Lin Yi's face was calm, holding a cup of coffee in his hand, and slightly raised it to the girl in the photo. "I can't help you with anything, I can only give you a full meal. If there is an afterlife, I will be born into a good family in the next life." After taking a sip of coffee, Lin Yi's eyes showed a hint of coldness. Brandy looked at Lin Yi's strange behavior and said in panic, "Boss, you are not crazy, don't scare me." As he said that, he hurriedly walked out of the bar and stretched out his hand to wave in front of Lin Yi. Snap! With a crisp sound, Lin Yi slapped Brandy's hand. "What are you doing? You are crazy. Go and clean up the steak, bury it in the backyard, and light 3 incense sticks and 2 candles." Brandy's face turned pale when he heard it, and then he stammered, "Manager, were you talking to that thing just now?" Looking at Brandy, who was trembling all over, as if he had seen a ghost, with a terrified face. Lin Yi pursed his lips, "Look at how scared you are. It's a little girl, on the news. I don't know why I ran to the door of the store." Brandy turned pale when she heard this. "She's still here." His eyes were looking around in panic, and his whole body was trembling even more. "No more, maybe going to heaven." Lin Yi felt a little melancholy. The world is getting weirder and weirder, and all kinds of ghost incidents are emerging one after another. I'm afraid this kind of thing will happen in the future. Don't be surprised. This is what we do. Brandy patted her chest and breathed a sigh of relief. "It's okay if you're not here. I'm most afraid of things like ghosts." "You look like a bear," he looked at Brandy with disdain. "Go clean up quickly and bring me another large plate of steak." Brandy muttered and began to clear away the plates, his eyes constantly scanning the seat that Lin Yi had opened just now. Seeing Brandy squirming, Lin Yi kicked him on the butt. "Hurry up, take your time." Holding her butt, Brandy quickly packed up the steak and took it into the backyard to clean up. Seeing Brandy's disappearing figure, Lin Yi shook his head. "I'm so stupid. I'm so stupid. I still want to take revenge like this. It's a humming revenge." Shaking his head, Lin Yi sat back on the sofa and continued reading the newspaper. Ding ding ding. But within 3 minutes, a crisp bell rang, and at the same time a gust of fragrant wind blew in my face. A soft and crisp voice sounded, "Excuse me, is this the Wanchaiwu house that solves the problem of resentful spirits?" Lin Yi's eyes moved away from the newspaper and fell on the owner of the voice. "You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 9. She wore a red hairpin, her long hair was tied up behind her head, she was wearing a black leather coat, a white fur around her neck, snow-white leather gloves on both hands, and a pair of over-the-knee leather boots. She was tall and very charming. She had a delicate face, She was in her 30s, with a beautiful nose, cherry lips, a beauty mole at the corner of her mouth, and snow-white skin. She was a typical beauty, but she looked a little haggard. She had a layer of light dark circles on her eyes. Although she had makeup to cover them, it couldn't hide the fatigue in her eyes. Lin Yi smiled slightly and stood up. "Lady, please sit here. I am the manager of the Wanchaiwu, Lin Yi." He pulled out the single sofa and invited the beautiful young woman to sit down. Brandy was returning to the front hall from the backyard. Seeing the young woman and Lin Yi, his eyes lit up. "Guests are coming." Lin Yi glanced at him and said to the young woman, "Madam, what would you like to drink?" The young woman raised her tired eyes and said softly, "A cup of coffee." "A cup of coffee, hurry up," Lin Yi said to Brandy with a straight face. A smile appeared on Brandy's face. "Okay." He quickly took out the coffee machine, put the fresh coffee beans in, and started grinding. A few minutes later, a cup of fragrant coffee appeared in front of the young woman. The young woman took off her gloves elegantly, and a pair of white hands appeared in front of Lin Yi. 10 fingers are slender, the nails are pure color, without any nail polish. The skin of the palm is delicate, as shiny as milk, a woman with 10 fingers that have never touched the spring water. After taking a sip of coffee, the young woman narrowed her eyes slightly, as if she was savoring the taste of coffee. "It's delicious, bitter with a hint of fragrance, the best coffee beans." Brandy said loudly at the bar, "Of course, I picked it myself." The young woman smiled slightly, and the temperature in the Wanchi house seemed to rise a level. 100 charming smiles, spring flowers bloom. Brandy looked at the young woman's smile, blushed, and hurriedly lowered his head to scrub the plate in his hand. Lin Yi looked at Brandy's appearance, his eyelids rolled up. "You are useless." "Ahem. Madam, can you introduce yourself, your origins, and the specific reasons for finding my Wanchi house?" The young woman's face showed a trace of sadness. "My name is Chang Sui, and I am the boss of Bayu Jewelry Store." "Bayu Jewelry Store? Isn't that the first luxury store in Honglian City?" Brandy screamed. Lin Yi frowned and stared at him. "Do your job, why are you butting in?" Chang Sui paused, her voice was delicate and slightly sad. "It turns out that the matter is related to my missing husband. My husband and I had an argument over something 3 years ago. Then he left in anger and never came back. I used many connections to investigate and search for my husband, but to no avail. 3 years have passed in the blink of an eye, and I had given up hope. But a few days ago, I saw my husband appear in front of me every day in my dreams, covered in blood." As if she thought of the horrific scene in her dream, a trace of fear appeared on Chang Sui's beautiful face. "He looked at me and said he died tragically. Then he rushed at me. Every time this happens, I wake up in shock." Lin Yi frowned. "It sounds like a nightmare. Is there anything else?" Chang Sui lowered her eyebrows and stared at the coffee in front of her. "Every time I wake up, I see a pair of bloody handprints on my arms and neck. It's true, my husband turned into a ghost and came back. I don't know why he wants to hurt me. Could it be that he resented me for quarreling with him, which led to his death?" With a look of fear on her face, Chang Sui's eyes were erratic, and she looked more and more haggard. The sickly look made Brandy at the bar look distressed, as if he felt the same way. A 30-year-old woman still has this kind of charm, which shows how beautiful Chang Sui is and how well she maintains herself. Lin Yi nodded upon hearing this. "It sounds like a supernatural event. This is my specialty, but Madam Chang Sui, how much are you willing to pay? After all, this is a very dangerous job, isn't it?" A smile appeared on her face, as bright as an innocent child, and Lin Yi's eyes were about to turn into dollar. Chang Sui looked at Lin Yi excitedly. "Can you really handle this? I'm willing to pay 100 gold coins. The purchasing power of the gold coins in the Red Lotus realm is very terrifying." The currency system of the Red Lotus realm has paper money, called the imperial coin, which ranges from 1 yuan to 100 yuan. The purchasing power is similar to that of RMB on Earth. The price of a gold coin is comparable to the purchasing power of 1,000 imperial coins. 100 gold coins are the purchasing power of 100,000 imperial coins, which is indeed a very high price. Lin Yi smiled, frankly, "Madam, rest assured, leave this matter to me, and I will definitely give you a satisfactory answer." Chang Sui was excited upon hearing this, and couldn't help but grab Lin Yi's hand. The soft skin made Lin Yi's heart flutter. Brandy, who was watching this scene, gnashed his teeth and muttered to himself, "Beast." Lin Yi smiled, "Don't worry, madam. I have been doing this for 3 years. As long as the money is enough, it won't be a problem." As he said this, he withdrew his hand calmly. "Then, let's talk about the details of this matter in detail. Brandy, bring the paper." Half an hour later, Lin Yi packed up his things and left the Wanchaiwu with Chang Sui. In front of the door, there was a black Xuanhuan sedan. Classic black style, streamlined body, the price is at least 1,000 gold coins. As Chang Sui and Lin Yi came to the front of the car, the driver got out quickly and opened the door for the two. The driver looked to be in his 30s, with a handsome face and a strong aura. He was obviously a bodyguard who was also a part-time driver. The two sat in the back seat. Chang Sui looked at Lin Yi and said, "This is my full-time driver Wang Lanbin. He used to be a special forces in the army, proficient in all kinds of fighting and firearms. If it weren't for him protecting me in my daily life, I'm afraid I would have died somewhere." With a hint of tenderness in her eyes, Chang Sui looked at Wang Lanbin's back. Lin Yi smiled slightly when he heard this, "So that's how it is, Mr. Wang is amazing." Wang Lanbin looked silent, not arrogant to Chang Sui's praise, and said calmly, "This is my job, my duty. Madam, go there now. Go home, I want to take Mr. Lin Yi to see the scene." "Okay, both of you sit tight." Boom boom boom. With the roar of the engine, the Xuanhuan car started quickly, breaking through the snowy road and heading towards the west of the city. The road was very bleak, with heavy snow, and everyone hid at home and didn't want to come out. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 10. The road was deserted. Even the homeless hid in the sewers of the underground heating system. There were almost no people on the road. If this weather was in ancient times, I don't know how many people would die, Lin Yi sighed. Chang Sui said with a slightly melancholy expression, "Yes, this weather is too cold. The newspaper just published the news that a homeless person froze to death yesterday." Wang Lanbin drove in front and added, "The weather has been abnormal in recent years, and many poor people have died from various disasters. The economy is in recession, and more people are about to die. I heard that this is a natural disaster caused by the change of heaven and earth." The three chatted casually, and half an hour later, they came to a villa area in the west of the city. This is one of the richest areas in Honglian City, and all the residents are Honglian City wealthy businessmen and government officials. Chang Sui can live here, and her status is even more powerful than Lin Yi thought. Along the asphalt road, they came to the outside of a 3-story villa. The villa is snow white. There is a garden at the entrance, with a fountain in the middle. In the middle of the pool is a white jade statue of a carp leaping over the dragon gate. A stream of spring water gushed out from the carp's mouth and fell into the air as a water curtain. The exquisite structure is definitely worth a lot of money. The door opened automatically, and Wang Lanbin drove the car into the garage. Lin Yi and Chang Sui walked into the villa from the main entrance. Several servants in gray and black maid outfits quickly came out to greet them. "Hello, madam." "Hello, madam." Lin Yi encountered this kind of scene for the first time. 7 or 8 maids lined up to greet him, which made him feel a little uncomfortable. Chang Sui looked tired at this time. Let's all go to work. Sister Wang, bring a pot of good tea. This is Mr. Lin. I asked him to handle the matter. The oldest middle-aged woman among the maids nodded, yes, madam. Entering the villa, you can see a hall with various decorations around it. At the end of the hall is a door, which seems to be a living room. There were 3 sofas and chairs in the middle of the living room, and a closet at the end. Chang Sui led Lin Yi in. Please sit down, Mr. Lin. Lin Yi looked around. Let's go directly to the place where the incident happened first, and then sit down later. Chang Sui nodded, okay. Please follow me. Following Chang Sui, they went directly to the 3rd floor along the stairs at the end of the hall. The 3rd floor was an open-air garden, and in the center of the garden was an open-air glass house. However, this glass was not ordinary glass. Lin Yi could tell at a glance that it was special bulletproof glass. The glass on all 4 sides of the glass house had thick curtains that could block any sight or light. Chang Sui came to the glass house along the stone path in the open-air garden. At this time, the door of the glass house was open, and she pointed inside with a nervous expression. This is my usual bedroom. The nightmares these days all happened here. 2 days ago, every day when I woke up from a nightmare, there were bloody footprints on the ground besides my body. There are also bloody handprints on the glass. Lin Yi nodded and walked in along the glass door. When he entered, a faint smell of blood hit him. A string of bloody footprints on the ground extended from the door to the bed. There were also bloody palms on the furniture around. It seemed that the bloody palms had slender fingers, not like human handprints. Lin Yi's eyes were very sharp and he noticed the weirdness of these bloody palms. The fingertips of the bloody handprints, like a sharp triangular thorn, extended for 2 centimeters. This guy is not ordinary, Lin Yi muttered to himself. But Chang Sui only had bloody handprints on her body. Could it be that this vengeful spirit has not yet materialized to the point of affecting reality? After carefully checking the scene, Lin Yi narrowed his eyes. A faint green light flashed, and a mysterious mark appeared in the depths of his pupils. His eyes swept across the entire room, and also swept across Chang Sui. He paused slightly and turned his eyes away. Chang Sui was facing the door with her back, looking at the endless villas outside. Obviously, she didn't want to see the bloody handprints all over the room. That unpleasant feeling made her very upset. She didn't know that Lin Yi had just used the true destiny interpretation to look at her. Soon, Lin Yi walked to Chang Sui. Madam, I have just checked it carefully. According to my judgment, this vengeful spirit has not reached the level of affecting reality. It should be transforming from virtual to real. Based on my years of research. Generally speaking, there are several processes for the appearance of vengeful spirits. The first process is illusion. Vengeful spirits of this level generally have no lethality. At most, they affect the brain of organisms, making you see various hallucinations and causing mental pressure. If the will is strong enough, you can easily wake up from this illusion. The second stage is the dream stage. The vengeful spirits at this stage can enter people's dreams and cause greater mental pressure on the host in the dream. There will even be a certain degree of physical influence at this stage. For example, when you wake up, you see bloody handprints on your body. Many people can't bear the mental pressure at this stage, and the whole person goes crazy or commits suicide. As for the third stage, affecting reality. As the name implies, when the ghosts change from illusion to reality, they will have a strong killing power. So, your husband's ghost has probably reached the second stage, entering the dream. Next, if it continues, it is very likely to become a reality, and then it will really hurt you. Chang Sui was shocked when she heard Lin Yi talking slowly. What should I do, master? Please save me. Lin Yi smiled. Of course, I take money from people and help them get rid of disasters. Don't worry, this ghost is not a big deal at the moment. I can still deal with it. Tonight, I will stay by your side, you can sleep peacefully. Chang Sui's pale face showed a trace of struggle, but thinking of the horror of the night, okay, trouble master. Then I'll leave first, I have to prepare some things. Lin Yi left Chang Sui's villa, stood outside the door, turned his head and took a deep look at Chang Sui's villa. A green light flashed in his eyes, and the whole villa was shrouded in a faint black mist. Many strange figures were looming in the black mist. They all had blood flowing from their eyes, blood stains on their heads, and their faces were full of painful expressions. This family seems to be a tough one. To be cautious, I'd better make some preparations. I don't want to be sold out and still help others count money. At night, Lin Yi returned to Chang Sui's villa.